Hello, and welcome to the Personal Transformation Experience podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about spring cleaning or spring clearing, as I like to think of it. It's more than just clearing out the clutter in your closets and garage. It's more about clearing out the clutter in your head and on your laptop. Because that also gets cluttered, but more or less in your head. I was inspired to talk about this when I read a blog from Megan Neff, Dr. Megan Neff. She has the Neurodivergent Insight website, and she writes a lot of really, really interesting stuff. We'll put a link in the captions. But when I started reading about this, it really resonated with me because I've done this a lot my whole life, the process of cleansing and clearing. And I thought I was just running from my own emotional pain. But in a way, I was clearing and cleansing my emotional pain and whatever toxicity built up in my body, and to leave room for more fresh ideas and open myself up for more positive emotions.
I like this topic. I actually went into the office on Friday and cleared out papers and files that I hadn't looked at in 2 years. And we did this recently in the home too a few weeks ago. And I think, that old rule of thumb, but if you haven't used something or looked at something or no one else has used it in 2 years, it probably should go.
Yeah. I mean, people will say that who know about clearing and cleaning clutter. I can't handle clutter. I don't think well in a cluttered environment. Yeah. So if my environment's cluttered, then my brain is cluttered. Like I can't think that way. So I cleanse frequently. And I'm one of those super sensitive people. So I'm more porous to the world. So a lot more comes in. And because of that, I have to do it more frequently. So this is why I do it a lot. When I was younger, I used to exercise. Like if I had a really challenging experience at work or a bad breakup, which happened often, I would go into a cocoon, go inside myself and sort of burrow inside to protect myself and just start working my body, exercising, running, swimming, lifting weights, whatever it was, and just sort of went inside myself. And at the time I thought I was just running away, escaping my emotions. But I think in retrospect, what I was actually doing was cleansing my body of all of that emotion, just sort of making space to bring in something new and better. But I had to get it out. I had to get the toxicity out, and that sweat, that working the body to exhaustion, it felt so clearing, so cleansing to me.
Yeah.
And when I was done, I felt 100 times better. I mean, the endorphin rush, of course, works, and then the dopamine, because you did something really hard, always helps. So I think that's a big part of it. When you do something that is hard or you don't want to, even letting go and realizing what you're clinging to is something that gives space to those thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, I mean, people have a hard time letting go of stuff, right? Material things. They have a hard time letting go of mental formations, right? An idea of a person, wanting people to be a certain way, wanting someone to change that isn't going to change, right? Or you coming to the realization you can't change other people.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to take things out. You have to look at what is serving a purpose in your life, in your garage, in your closet, in your family, right? So I think it's kind of the same principle applied all the way around, right? Is this, and I don't mean to say that everybody has to be here to serve me. That's not what I mean by making that statement. But I mean, is it helpful, right? Associating with people who put us down, or ridicule us or make fun of us, right? That is not necessary to continue to have that in our life, right? So that would be an example of something or someone that we need to clear from our life.
Yeah, how is this serving me in my life?
Yeah.
She asked 3 questions. I love what she brings up. The idea of spring clearing invites us to pause and ask, what is serving me well in this season? What have I outgrown or adapted out of survival but no longer need? And what can I cultivate, generative or expansive space? Where can I cultivate generative or expansive space? And that's kind of the crux of it. That's where you get the idea of like, if you haven't used it in 6 months, get rid of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was holding on to clothes that I wasn't willing to let go of, toys that I worked with in New York that I still had that I don't need anymore, because I work with children and, I don't bring toys. I'm not supposed to be bringing toys in the home. So I didn't need them. I just didn't want to let go of them. You cling to thoughts and ideas. You cling to a lot of different things. It's not just spring cleaning. It's confronting ideas and thoughts that you're not willing to let go of, confronting the idea of scarcity, emotional attachments, just letting go of ideas that are wasteful.
Yeah.
It's like
it's pruning.
Did you
say pruning?
Yeah. So there's a beautiful metaphor because I have a beautiful gardenia bush in the backyard. Mm-hmm. And when we first moved here, it wasn't really blooming. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I looked up, I figured out how to prune it properly. So this year I pruned it properly. And I made sure I did it, I followed the directions. I did it right. And it's in such beautiful bloom, like all these beautiful new buds and blooms. And it's full of buds. Like it's bloomed fully and there's so many more buds. So
because you made it a little bit lighter, right?
Yeah,
you pruned it and made it a little bit lighter.
So I pruned away all the dead stuff and it made way for these brand new beautiful blooms, and it smells delicious. And you sit out on the patio and you could just smell it. And it's all the way in the back of the yard, but you could smell it because it's blooming so beautifully right now. And I think that's kind of a metaphor for our lives and our own mind and emotions. You have to prune back what you don't need. And the brain does that.
Yeah.
So between birth to 3, your brain absorbs everything. Like there's no discrimination. The mind is a complete sponge, and that's absolutely true. By 3 years old, it starts snipping away and pruning that which it doesn't use that much.
Right.
So any experience, and again, it's non-discriminatory, right? So you don't, any experience that you've had, whether it's good or bad, if you don't use it a lot, it will snip it and prune it. And it'll keep those experiences that you use frequently at your disposal. So it gets more efficient. And I think that we need to do that in our lives. I know I do.
And I think the meditation practice kind of goes along with this as well, because you're trying to make more mental space, right? And letting thoughts. So maybe you have anxiousness, you have anxious thoughts, anxiety. Yeah. And so by meditating for 20 to 30 minutes, you can kind of let those thoughts come and then let them go and try not to go with them. That's the key of meditation. But in the same way, you're kind of, I don't like think of meditation as you're clearing your mind, because that's not possible.
No,
right?
you can't clear your mind.
But you want to create more space, right? I think in your mind to allow for these thoughts to kind of move around, kind of like your gardenia bush. And I think then when you do that, when you create more mental space, then you have more room for beautiful things to grow in your mind. Creativity, things you're passionate about, contributing to the lives of others or the world at large, right? So I think there's a lot of great examples here. These things are all interconnected. There's no separateness from this, right? And we're all interconnected. Yeah. But this whole idea that pruning the bush, cleaning the garage, meditating, trying to create more space in your mind, all these things work together. There's like a synthesis behind all of it, right? Because as you're doing these things, it puts you in the practice of looking at what needs to go, what needs to stay. Mm-hmm. And I think then it becomes easier to look at people that way too. What people need to go in my life and who needs to stay, right? Because those are things that you have people that shouldn't be in your life who are holding you back from growing, right? And being the beautiful gardenia bush in your beautiful example, right? Mm-hmm. That you could be. So you really have to look at that and say, what is kind of like clouding my ability to grow, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the plan is probably a better example than the garage. I think clutter all around you. I think clutter is the mind. I agree with you 100%. But I love your example of the bush, because in making that bush a little bit lighter, it's able to grow in a way it's not grown before. So I think we're like that too.
Yeah, very much. And I love that, when you think about meditation, again, you're not clearing, you can't clear your mind. Nobody can, right?
No.
So, but you are observing your thoughts, right? So you're watching them and you're paying attention. What is going on in my mind? What is there that I need to let go of?
Right.
Right. What's wasteful? Why am I holding on to this? Am I going to need it someday? Let things go. And it's the same thing as I was looking at my gardenia bush and observing it and trying to figure out what I don't need on it, like where I prune it, what areas am I supposed to prune it with? So it's the same idea. And you snip it away and you're like, okay, I could let this go. Like letting go of items or thoughts or ideas or people. Are you going to need them someday? Probably not. You don't really need much to function. You might want someone in your life, but if they're toxic, do you need them in your life? Not really.
And I think about this applies to people's use of social media, right? And screen time.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how does screen time serve you? Are screen time like weeds that are kind of choking off growth of the plants and keeping them from being healthy? I think so, in a way, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's mental weeds, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing that encourages a mental weed to grow. Now, some internet time is useful if you're researching a topic or you want to educate yourself or read a good story that inspires you or just makes you feel good. But if you're just mindlessly scrolling and watching videos or scrolling through posts to see how other people live, is that allowing you to grow or is that holding you back? So I think we need to look at that in all areas of our lives. So it's not just people that may not be serving us, but our activities that may not be serving us as well.
Yeah.
And that's part of like when you dig into some of the Buddhist principles that we like, from the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Paths, this idea of, this right mindfulness and this, and so it's what's the best approach to everything, right? How do we have the right mindset? And when you have a lot of weeds in your life, whether in the form of people or screen time or whatever it is, right? Alcohol, if you have a substance abuse disorder, those are all things that can choke off the ability to grow and be who you were meant to be.
If you clear the brush and the weeds, the old brush and the weeds, and get rid of old coping patterns, strategies that don't work, old beliefs, it lays the groundwork for new things to take root.
Examine everywhere. So now I kind of feel like the illustration here for me is your life is like a garden, right? What are you going to allow to take root? What are you going to plant in that garden? What are you going to allow to take root? Because you have intentionality about what you're planting in that garden.
It's deeply internal.
But it's an open ecosystem, though, and opportunistic seeds, right, will navigate their way into your garden and plant themselves there because you've created this environment of a rich soil or whatever it is. Yeah. But you have to make the decision. It's your garden. You have to make the decision, do I want to let that grow here?
Exactly.
And maybe
is it
say,
a weed?
No, I don't want that seed here.
Yeah.
Right? And you can't prevent the seeds from coming in.
No.
It's an open environment,
right?
But are you going to just let your garden accept every seed that comes in and grow, and your garden will suffocate?
Yeah, it'll get strangled with weeds, and all the beautiful ideas or blooms that you want to see are going to get strangled and suffocated with the weeds that are taking over. That's like my rose bush, same thing. I mean, this weed was growing up. I removed the weed, and now it's like flourishing. So
I think it's a great illustration too to use with kids. I'd love to talk to Finn about that as a 20-year-old. Or I hope the example it resonates somehow. Yeah, like do you think about your life as a garden, right? And what are you planting? What are you allowing to take root there? Your mind and your body, your emotions. Well, that's what it is, the mind, because everything is in the mind. So when I say your life, I mean your mind, right? Because your life is what's in your mind, right? You nurture your life. That's it, right? I mean, it's all there. So how are you nurturing your mind, right? Because how you nurture your mind, what you allow to take root there and grow there will determine how you live. Yeah. Yeah, our logo is a person coming out of a flower pot, growing out of a flower pot. So it's evolutionary. It's growth, mindset, and but intentional growth. Right, implies that you're going to make sure you don't allow things that inhibit that growth.
Right. And you're aware. You have a sense of awareness of
and that's
what
the mindfulness
is coming
awareness.
in, and intentionally clearing out, doing the spring cleaning or clearing out. And you don't have to do it every spring. I mean, people tend to hibernate over the winter. I know
Right.
I do, but you hibernate and you're inside and you have more of an opportunity to kind of be in your own little cocoon and nourish and sort of cultivate ideas. And you do tend to collect things over the winter, so to speak, if you will, like maybe calories, maybe pounds.
Well,
maybe
food can be in the same thing too, right?
Yeah.
If you think about, okay, right, my physical growth, what is it that then is considered a weed, right? In my growth, and what am I going to let to take root there, right? Because we've talked about this before, right? The health of the mind, the health of the body, people, you can add in the spiritual part, but I would say that kind of overlays with the mind as well. They're all, everything's tied together. So you have to be very intentional about what you allow into your world, right? Your inner world.
Yeah. I mean, I think about when I garden, I mean, I love gardening. So, and I'm learning so much because I have a yard and I can do that. But I know every fall I get the flowers and everything ready for the winter. Yeah. So I'll cut them back, I'll prune them back, or I'll protect them so that they're protected for the winter. So you could do that for yourself too.
Absolutely.
You could do fall cleaning, right? You clear out and get ready for the winter and prepare to take in new ideas and cultivate different things over the winter. And maybe you do collect some stuff, and then in the spring you think, okay, what do I not need here?
Right.
What did I use? What do I need? What can I get rid of? And it's sometimes people get emotional constipation, right? Which we were thinking about this the other day. It's a funny word, but you need to figure out how to cleanse your body of those emotions. And for me, especially because I am so porous to the world, I absorb everybody's emotions everywhere I go. And I have to really be careful that I clear them out. Right. And so there's practices that I have now, like exercise, like meditation, to help clear those emotions out or observe them and recognize that they need to go.
Yeah.
And then I could start fresh. Because when I get backed up with emotions, I'm agitated, I'm snappy, I'm not good. I can't think clearly because the emotional part of my brain is like overloaded. It's funny. I'm in a group meets once a month on a Monday, and we start with a meditation, and then we listen to a Dharma talk from YouTube. So it's basically like a teaching that's connected to Buddhist principles. And while the leader of the group was or facilitator of the group, I guess we don't have leaders. Showed us the YouTube video because he doesn't have the subscription to remove it. An ad pops up, and an ad pops up about constipation. And all of a sudden you have this Metamucil commercial, and the girl's saying, "That's funny. I need to poop so bad." So we're all laughing at the end, like, and I'm always trying to see the connection and the lesson and everything, right? Yeah.
What am I supposed to learn from this moment?
Right.
And that was my thought when we were all talking as the wrap up is, this guy's apologizing for this ad coming up, which of course he didn't know was going to come up. He has no control over it.
Right, yeah.
And I said, to me, I say that was appropriate. I said it belonged in the message because the message that we were getting was kind of around, clarity, right? And this clearing out things that don't belong or that don't serve us. And I thought, well, that's the purpose of meditation, right? So you don't want to have mental constipation, right? Where you got all these thoughts and are jammed up, and the things that people told you when you were younger about yourself, these voices in your head, right? Those are all weeds and clutter that don't belong there, and it will prevent you from living your best life in the moment. So I thought, no, that's great. The example of constipation made 100% sense. And I know you said it earlier today, right?
Yeah.
Let's avoid mental constipation.
Or emotional constipation.
Emotional constipation, right? So it's
things will build up.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a practice of letting go and finding space for yourself to clear them out, then it's going to be difficult and you're going to things get toxic.
Yeah.
So it's made me think about my watch. When I used to swim all the time, I'd wear my watch, and at the end, the watch had me do a thing where I press the button and it gets rid of all the water inside. So it's like, and that robot movie we watched the other night, he did the same thing.
The Wild Robot.
The Wild Robot.
Mm-hmm.
He
Great
had
movie.
this, the robot had this, she had this, like way of squeezing everything out of its body that it didn't need. So it kind of came together, everything came out. It was really funny. It kind of reminds me of that. And it made me just now think of my watch.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, but you're
How
right.
you squeeze everything out of it.
Yeah.
All the water just comes right out. Well, you kind of have to do that with your body in a sense. With your mind and your body, you have to like take a minute and just let everything go. Like let it go.
Absolutely. I didn't really know where this was going to go when we were talking, and I didn't rehearse like we usually do.
Yeah.
But I think it was just a great topic, right?
Yeah.
Because this is all areas of our life, right? So you get rid of the physical clutter, right? Things that we haven't looked at, don't need.
Yeah.
Because if your house is crowded and just full of junk, right, it's going to be hard to do the other work, which is on yourself.
Yeah.
Right? On yourself. Because then when you start working on yourself, meditating, trying to clear your mind, looking at all the things you do on a daily basis. Why am I doing this? Is it preventing me from growing? Then you can start looking at the bigger picture is who are the people in my life, right?
Right.
Maybe even the work that I do, right? Is the work I'm doing inhibiting my growth as an individual? Is the world better served by me doing something other than what I'm doing now? And then you could start having those bigger conversations with yourself when you don't have the external clutter and you don't have the mental clutter. So I think it's all connected.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think, and that's where I think many people can find their purpose.
Yeah.
When they don't have, because they're so busy, you get so busy in your life and, you're trying to make a living, pay the bills, raise children,
right?
Whatever it is you're doing, it's hard to, and then you feel like you find yourself just not that happy.
Right.
Like something doesn't feel right.
Fulfilled.
You don't feel fulfilled. You may have all the material things in the world you want, but you're just lacking and you're trying to figure out like what's wrong with me. Like I have everything I could possibly want and I still,
we've heard many stories.
I'm not happy.
Yeah. And that was that was actually the thing we watched Monday night that I was talking about earlier was about, having stuff and chasing after, things you think you want. Right.
Right.
But like you said, for most people, that's
It's a
not where
purpose.
fulfillment's going to come from the number of cars you have or,
Yeah, it's finding your purpose, and I think that's good for anybody. And they tell you, I don't know who they are, but like I've heard, I've read stuff about, like Oprah or whoever talks about finding your purpose. It's good to, if you really don't know which direction to go to, start by serving others. That always makes everybody feel better.
Agree.
If you can go and serve people in the world, in your community, in a way where you're giving back, that always helps. It kind of fills you with a sense of purpose and gratitude that you were able to help somebody who was in need. And then it makes way for a path to clear stuff out. I feel like that might make a way for a path for you to be like, okay, I really enjoyed that. I want to get that feeling again. How do I repeat that? How do I get back? And then you'll find your path that way. I think, because that's always helped me, but my work is to help others. And I've done this,
that's what you're
20
passionate
years
about.
now.
So
yeah, I really am. So I've always, and it doesn't, I tell you, I would do it whether I got paid or not.
No, and that's a wonderful experience, right? To say, hey, I would do this whether it was paid or not, right? That I think, anybody comes to me and says, well, I'm going to do this because it makes a lot of money. I question that, right? Because I don't think that's sustainable. I think you make money when you do what you love and love what you do. And the money will flow from that because that's a sustainable path forward.
Yeah.
I'm also reminded as we're talking about something, someone who used to work for me used to say all the time, when you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Right?
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
but it's so important, right, to create this space for reflection, for being intentional, and having an overcrowded mind. Physical life is like an overcrowded garden, right? You're not gonna get sustainable and optimal growth in that garden, and we are like that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's important you find strategies that are cathartic for you, like to help get things out of your head onto paper, wherever you need it, or just get them out. Like even if you have to write everything down, so now it's outside of you and you could look at it. It's some perspective on it.
Right. I did that. I did an exercise years ago in my green journal that's sitting over there. And I wrote, it was kind of like an exercise. Who am I? What do I really like to do? What did I like to do when I was younger? What were the things I did that gave me joy when I was younger, right? And so if you can connect back to, hey, when I was 8 years old or 10 years old, what were the things that I gravitated to, what gave me joy, and try that now, right, as an adult, and see, do those things still give me joy? And you might be surprised what comes up.
Yeah, because things change. You change over time. Different things will make you happy than they did then. And maybe the same things will make you happy. And you just forgot about it.
Yeah.
We tend to
try and reconnect.
We tend to totally forget about things that really made us excited and thrilled and had joy, and really we felt a sense of purpose and belonging. And then we lose track of that when we're trying in the pursuit of,
right.
money.
So once you pull all those weeds back, right, you say, oh, here I am, right?
Right. You clear out the brush and the weeds, and it makes way for new roots to shoot.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just remember that clearing is like pruning. You want to make space for what you want to grow. That's the main idea, I think, that
make space for what you want to grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
In your life. I love that.
Yep.
So if you have any thoughts on that, please feel free to leave us comments in YouTube, or go to our Instagram at Personal Transformation EXP. We hope that you found this valuable. If you did, valuable. I am having trouble speaking today. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share.
You need to clear your head, honey.
Thank you all, and have a great week.